Hi, my name is Nate Brill, and I'm the team leader at the Brill team. And I wanted to talk about kind of the stuff that stresses people out the most in a transaction, and that would obviously be the things that make it fall apart. So basically, in short, there are three major contingencies that exist in a typical real estate transaction, and by typical, I mean a financed purchase. So most of these contingencies are put in place to protect the earnest money that the buyer has put down and to make sure that there's no recourse. It's not like the seller can go after the buyer if one of these contingencies has fallen through. So basically, there are three main ones. The first of which is going to be your inspection period, and I'll get into the stuff in more detail here in a sec. But the first is the inspection period. Second is going to be your appraisal, and the third is going to be the buyer's financing. So the inspection period is a 10-day period that starts the first full day following the contract acceptance. So basically, if you got a contract accepted, whether you're on the buyer side or on the seller side, if you get an accepted contract, say on a Sunday, your first full day starts Monday. And this doesn't take into account holidays or any of that stuff. I mean, those don't really affect it. It's 10 calendar days. So anyway, 10 days, and during that time, the buyer has the right to do any sort of inspection that they want, specifically to the property. If they want to look at the area, they want to look at crime statistics, if they want to know that there might be a sex offender around there that is a material issue to them, that's stuff that they have the right to cancel for. In truth, they can basically cancel for just about anything that they want. If they feel uncomfortable with their purchase, if they got buyer's remorse and feel like they bought too much house and they're not going to be able to afford it, that's what this 10 days is for. It gives them the right to cancel for, again, just about any reason. Obviously, it has to be something that they can say specifically is their reasoning. But nonetheless, they have the right to cancel, and that's, I will say, the most precarious time in the entire transaction because just about anything can cause it to fall apart during that time. Once you're out of that, the next kind of in line from that is the appraisal. And just a quick note on appraisals, it is kind of a bunch of, crap, because it oftentimes has no basis in reality. You could have a house that's sold with 10 offers and it went above list price, and that obviously says that the market will bear whatever the price was. And if it comes in low, well, that's the appraiser's opinion, and unfortunately that's the one that carries weight. So that's the one that the bank is going to listen to. So just to address kind of what happens if an appraisal comes in low or high or right at value, we'll just kind of get into that here. So if it comes in at value, which is obviously what we're hoping for, and I will say most oftentimes that's what happens. And when I say at value, I mean the contract price. Whatever buyer seller agreed to, if the appraisal comes in at that value, that's all good. It doesn't cause any hiccups. If it comes in high, so let's just say the house sold for $200,000 and the appraisal comes in at $210,000. I will tell you that doesn't happen often, but if it does, the seller doesn't even know about it because the appraisal was paid for by the buyer. Therefore, the appraisal is the property of the buyer, and they're not required to tell the seller that it came in above, and certainly that doesn't give anybody grounds to renegotiate and try and get a higher price. If it comes in low, which is most oftentimes what we're dealing with if there's an appraisal issue, if it comes in low, there's a couple different things that could play out. And this is the big one that sticks for sellers because they're worried about it. Obviously, they want to make sure that everything goes together. If it comes in low, let's just say it's, just for numbers, let's say the appraisal comes in $5,000 low. Again, to use the $200,000 mark, it comes in at $195,000. The expectation from the buyer is that the seller is going to drop their price to that $195,000 mark. The seller may feel adamant that their house is worth what they got for it, and they will feel that, well, hey, the buyer agreed to this price, they should be paying this price, and they may stick to their guns and say, no, the buyer has to come up with that $5,000 difference. The third potential is that you could meet in the middle. Buyer and seller could both figure out, hey, it's $5,000 difference. Seller will come down $2,500, buyer comes up $2,500, and then we put it together. Again, that $2,500 from the buyer has to come cash if they can't finance that. And then the fourth and more unfortunate one is the whole deal just completely dissolves. Buyer, seller can't come to terms, and the seller feels like they'd rather just go back on the market and see if they can get their price and get a better appraisal. If it's FHA or if it's VA, there's a good likelihood that that appraisal is going to stick with that property for a couple months, upwards of 4 to 6 months. And if you get another FHA or another VA buyer, there's not another appraisal that happens. It's stuck with that property until that time is expired. If it's conventional, you're good. You can get another appraisal. All that's good. So the third and final contingency is going to be your financing, and that's the buyer's financing. If the buyer has been pre-qualified by a good lender, and that lender has verified their bank statements, W-2s, employment, all of that fun stuff, we've got a really good chance that it's all going to go together. Obviously, things can happen. Somebody can lose their job. In that event, they're protected. The buyer is able to get out of the contract. They're not required to do anything because they simply can't qualify, and that contingency protects them. So again, that doesn't happen all that often because we're usually making sure that that we've vetted the buyer as much as we can based off of our conversation with the lender. And if there's something material to us, like they're right on the edge, their credit score might be just 1 point above where it needs to be. And things can change in that period of time. Yeah, things can happen, and we would like to know that they're on the edge before we get all the way under contract and you're stuck into this. But again, this is just the nature of real estate. Things happen. So once you're through those 3 contingencies, you're pretty much clear to close. And once underwriting has approved the loan, once you've got an appraisal and all of that, you're through the inspection period, you can fairly well bet that your house is going to close. And obviously it's not done until it's done, but once you're through those, there's a really good chance. So I hope that this was helpful. I hope that this explained most of what we deal with here, and again, what might cause it to fall through. But having a good qualified realtor to help you understand this stuff is half the battle, because if you feel like you know what's going on, then you're prepared for things that might happen. So if you want to call us, you can call us at 602-529-4092. And if you want to go to our website, that's www.brillteam.com. That's BRILL team.com. And we sell a whole bunch of houses, so we kind of know what we're doing here. So we'd love to hear from you. Thank you very much.